Welcome back to the July 4th edition of the Lightning Strike Sports Show. Worthy Road Studios bringing you this on their YouTube page, the Worthy Road Studios Facebook page, and the BallGame Blitz, where you'll get the finest action from several schools, including USJ and also South Gibson High School and Trinity Christian, Union University Sports. We've done boxing, we've done football for Bethel and Lane. Also, we do a lot of other things that we'll mention in other broadcasts. It is July 4th, and we're going to take this part of the show and make it a July 4th theme. July 4th is a significant date in sports history. And until the dead period is over, which is over July 7th, you can start back with practice and working, getting ready for those seasons. There's some iconic events that's happened in boxing, baseball, and tennis. Notable events include the fight of the century, Jack Johnson versus Jeffries, Lou Gehrig's farewell speech, and the Wimbledon finals, which Wimbledon is going on right now, featuring John McEnroe and Borg. Now, in boxing, let's cover a little of that. We've done boxing right here with Worthy Road Studios. Check out our archived Worthy Road Studios YouTube pages. We also have our own Worthy Road Studios YouTube channel that you can subscribe to. Please do that. 1910, Jack Johnson defeated Jim Jeffries in the fight of the century at that point in time in Reno, Nevada, retaining his heavyweight title. In 1919, Jack Dempsey won the heavyweight title after Jess Willard retired during their fight in Toledo, Ohio. And bottom line is, Willard said, that's enough. Dempsey, the Manassas Mauler, had beat the stuffing out of him. 1923, Jack Dempsey successfully defended his heavyweight title against Tommy Gibbons. Now in baseball, in 1939, one of the saddest, also one of the most familiar speeches in American history. I am the luckiest man in the world speech. 1939, Lou Gehrig gave his famous luckiest man speech at Yankee Stadium during the team's first Old Timers Day. His jersey number 4 was retired, and he got up there and talked about, maybe life had given him some bad breaks, and we'll talk about this speech a little more. Kind of chokes you up when you hear it. And he told people, today I am the luckiest man in the world, even though he was dying with the to-be-named Lou Gehrig disease. In baseball, Nolan Ryan in 1980 recorded his 3,000th career strikeout today, becoming the 4th pitcher to reach that milestone. In tennis, we talked about McEnroe and Borg at Wimbledon, and claiming his first Wimbledon title, 3rd Grand Slam, and of course, title. Jimmy Connors in 1982 won a thrilling 5-match set against the bad boy himself. Both of them were really bad boys in tennis. They could act up a little bit. They could play in a Wimbledon final. Some other notable events: 1994, Team USA played against Switzerland in Colombian World Cup play, advancing to round 16. And in 1984, Richard Petty won his 200th and final NASCAR race at the Firecracker 400. And in attendance was one of the great orator himself, President Ronald Reagan. And also here locally in July of 1982, Jackson's son, sports writer Bill Cox, sometimes known as Billy Ray Cox, former athlete at Jackson High, also at Union University and Jackson State. He was the Sun's sports writer at that time before he became sports editor. Or actually, I believe he had just become sports editor. Wrote a story about Jackson's Bob Carter. A lot of people know Bob Carter, former Union University assistant coach, played basketball at the University of Tennessee at Knoxville, had gotten his degree. He had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Carter, a 42-year-old vice president with Coca-Cola, said that he had no fear of the illness, though, as he had God to handle the fear for him. Cox wrote that Carter's faith pulled him through this trial, as it did in 1977 when he first sought treatment for alcoholism. Carter said that when he left an assistant coach position at Union University, what he thought would be a short stay with Coca-Cola, he no longer had the kids to answer to for his action, and he was a great model as a coach for all of us at Union. He talked about how he got to drinking, but he cured himself, and here's what is great about Bob Carter. Not only did he go back and he stayed with Coca-Cola, but he coached some at Episcopal Day School for 9 years, and he was active and served as president of the Jackson Exchange Club, but he went every weekend and preached at his dad's church after ridding himself of the demons and having multiple sclerosis. Hats off to former Union assistant coach and UT player Bob Carter. Some nice notes for July the 4th. Yogi Berra holds the record for winning the most World Series in Major League Baseball history over his 19-season career, primarily with the New York Yankees. He clinched 10 World Series championships as a player. That's more than any other player in Major League history. Fun fact, Berra also appeared in a total of 21 World Series, counting his roles as a player, coach, and a manager. Now that's a legend. And you're talking about All-American? Yes, he was. Now, we're going to deviate from the sports for a moment, and it's really important that we deal with this. And we're going to have another show that will be coming up very quickly. But what happened to the people, this is July 4th, what happened to those people that signed the Declaration of Independence? And happy July 4th to everyone here in America. Just a reminder of the price that was paid for this. It's honestly, I don't know if a lot of us would make these kind of sacrifices, but we did, or those men did, and we love them for what they did, and we love this country. What happened? Here's the price they paid. There were 56 men that signed the Declaration of Independence. It was almost like signing a death warrant. 5 of the signers were captured by the British as traitors and tortured before they died. 12 had their homes ransacked and burned to the ground. 2 lost their sons in the Revolutionary Army. Another had 2 sons captured. 9 of the 56 fought and died from wounds or hardships from the Revolutionary War. They signed and pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. What kind of men were these? They were 24 or more lawyers and jurists, made top dollar, and had everything to lose and only their countrymen and their freedom to gain. 11 were merchants, 9 were farmers, and large plantation owners, men of means, well educated. But they signed the Declaration of Independence knowing full well that the penalty would be death if they were captured. They actually signed their death warrant. But they did it for us. Hopefully we're a little thankful. Let me tell you a couple of these. Can't name them all. Carter Braxton of Virginia, wealthy Virginia planter and trader, saw his ships all captured, swept from the seas. He sold his home and properties to pay his debts and died in rags. Thomas McKean also was hounded by the British. He was forced to move his family, sometimes even monthly, just to stay ahead of the British. He served in Congress without pay. His family was kept in hiding. His possessions were taken from him, and poverty was his reward for doing the right thing. Vandals or soldiers or both looted the properties of Ellery, Clymer, Hall, Walton, Gwinnett, Hayward, Rutledge, and Middleton. At the Battle of Yorktown, Thomas Nelson Jr. noted that General Cornwallis, the British general, the hated British general, had taken over his home. The Nelson home is headquarters. He told George Washington to open fire on his own home and blow it to smithereens. The home was destroyed. Nelson died bankrupt. Francis Lewis had his home and properties destroyed. The enemy jailed his wife. She died in a few months after her jailing. Honest John Hart was driven from his wife's bedside as she was dying. Their 13 children fled for their lives. His fields, his grist mill, were laid to waste, totally destroyed. And for more than a year he lived in forest caves, returning home to find his wife dead and his children had vanished. A few weeks later he died from exhaustion and a broken heart. Norris and Livingston signers also suffered similar fates. These are the stories and sacrifices of the American Revolution. These were not wild-eyed, trouble-making, rabble-rousing ruffians. These were soft-spoken men, men of means, of education, refinery. They had security, but they valued liberty more. They pledged for the support of this declaration with firm reliance on the protection of the divine providence. We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. This is America. You're able to have mom apple pie in the American way, to play baseball on July the 4th, have other sports, and to watch great things like Worthy Road Studios' great productions in football, baseball, basketball, softball, boxing, track, volleyball, soccer, only because these men and many others in future wars paid the supreme sacrifice. Please honor our liberty, and God bless America. That is all for July the 4th. We thank you for being part of the Lightning Strike Sports Show. More things will be coming, more information, more live information on these broadcasts. We thank you, and God bless America.
The award-winning BallGame Blitz Sports Network from Worthy Road Studios. Over 1 million views in 2024. We're where you need to advertise. Subscribe to our Worthy Road Studios YouTube channel and join the over 5,500 subscribers watching local sports, Union University, Bethel College, South Gibson County, USJ, and TCA. Multi-camera broadcasts, slow motion instant replay, on-screen scoreboard and graphics, and professional announcers. Thanks to our sponsors who make it all possible. BallGame Blitz Sports Network from Worthy Road Studios, the premier sports broadcast network in West Tennessee.
Welcome to the Lightning Strike Sports Show on the facilities of Worthy Road Studios. I'm Coach Joe Holloway. We'll be bringing you this on the Worthy Road Studios YouTube page. It'll also be on the BallGame Blitz and Worthy Road Studios Facebook pages. We try to have at least one of these shows weekly. Sometimes they're right up to current events. Some of them, they're informational with some past, present, and future. This show is going to deal more with the past. There's several things that we want to talk about. We're getting closer to football time. The dead period is over. Practices, workouts start July the 7th. And we've got several things the Legislative Council still working on, although we do have a transfer portal of such with the TSSAA, which is going to alter the landscape of sports on the high school level. You really can't tell the players without a scorecard or a program anymore. And speaking of programs, hold this up, maybe Chris can get a good shot of it. Chris, our executive producer and director today. This is one that came from Rothrock Field. I'm kind of stretching out because we'll make sure it's probably a little tough to see. It's Jackson, or actually not Jackson Southside, it's Memphis Southside and Old Jackson High playing on that. And this game happened on October 8th, 1948. And the price of this program, 10 cents. They cost a little more than that now. They help the schools make money and raise funds, but you really can't tell the players without either a program or a scorecard now. And that we brought that into it a little bit. Let's do a little bit of history here, and we're going to go to the year 1996. And this story came out in July. Jackie Beard was the only Jacksonian to ever qualify for the Olympic Games and was prepared to compete for a medal in 1980, and to be honest with you, probably would have won it. Until politics got in his way and the U.S. kept its athletes home. That was Jimmy Carter, President Jimmy Carter's decision. So Beard turned professional boxer and had two world title bouts before his world began to crumble. Beard had some problems and things like that his whole life started unfolding after such a promising future, had those fights, and was a great young boxer. Obviously, boxing can damage you some and hurt you, and his speech got to be impaired. He was walking with a noticeable limp and had stiffness on his left side. But he felt sure that God was going to restore his health and that he would in time win that elusive world championship. Jackie's younger brother, Obi Beard, said, "Faith is good, but you have to be able to face reality." He needs to take that faith and use it to help others. He could still be a success and a champion outside the ring. And the Jackson Sun, will give them credit, had a feature article about the former Jackson champion and his struggles. A great boxer, could have been an Olympic gold medalist and would have been. That was the story in July. Now, a quick fun note. That would be one from Jack Crystal. A lot of people don't know this about Jack Crystal. He used to be the voice of the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Guess what? Jack Crystal actually broadcast right here in Jackson, Tennessee at one time in the early days of his career. Well, he's the owner of all kinds of famous lines and stuff about his team, but he's the owner of one of the more savage lines about his own team. In a post-game show, he would select the drive of the game in the football game, and after one of Mississippi State's losses, which its offense struggled mightily, Crystal bellowed out in his voice, and I cannot do a Jack Crystal voice, "The drive of the game is my drive home." Jack Crystal was great, and he told it like it was. Now, let's cover a few things that you want to hear. We're going to have great performances. Remember, we've got South Gibson football. We've got USJ football. We've got TCA football. We'll do some Bethel. We're waiting to hear about Lane. We did them last year. But just a few people. Now, some of these are kids that you won't see except for when their team plays us. For example, keep an eye on a guy named Jaden Pete in Milan. Pete was the Tennessee Titans Class 2A Mr. Football winner. He led the Bulldogs to the championship game in 2A, and he's really something else. He plays both offense and defense. He recorded 2,348 rushing yards and 32 touchdowns on 218 carries. Now, from a school that you get to watch, but this is a baseball player. We got to see him. Go back and watch the archive games of Cade Allen pitch for the South Gibson Hornets. He is a UT commit, and he is standing with that UT commitment and helped the Hornets with a top 4 finish in the 3A state tournament back in May of this year. He had a 6-2 record, 2 saves, 63 innings pitched, struck out 108, had a .56, yes, a .56 Bob Gibson, Sandy Koufax style numbers in earned run average. And the teams only hit 131 against him. He's a pretty good hitter, 280, 11 doubles, 31 RBIs, 31 runs scored, and I believe he was the co-baseball player of the year in Gibson County. Now, another baseball player, and we're going to get you some football players, Tommy Baker. His dad, Frankie Baker, former star football player at Northside many moons ago. Frankie, we won't tell off on you how long you were one of the stud muffins at Northside as a football player, and other sports too. But Tommy Baker helped the Hornets to that top 4 finish in the 3A state tournament. He hit 385, 16 doubles, 6 triples, 4 home runs, 34 RBIs, and 51 runs. He is the other co-player of the year in Gibson County. Mentioned I believe, granddaughter of Tommy Cobbin, former Humboldt coach who won 2 state titles while he was at Humboldt and has coached at other places, spent most of his time there, was principal there. I believe he's a school board member. Well, he had a granddaughter, Audrey Cobbin, who graduated this year, was the soccer player of the year in Gibson County. She had 40 goals and 13 assists. And young lady coming back for Gibson County. We do Gibson County, so that will feature USJ players and also TCA players. Jade Reed, sophomore, 20, 24, and 25, all Gibson County basketball player. of the year. Helped the Hornets to the Class 3A semifinals, averaged 11.1 points a game, 6.0 rebounds, 2.7 steals, 2.0 assists, shot 65% from the field. Did a lot of the things that we don't even have stats for on the floor. Great player in her own right. Brief mention for Kendrick Taylor, who graduated from Humboldt, great basketball player, and Ryder Patterson of the Peabody boys team. Those are some great ones. And of course, some other people, Cade Beaver and Yaya Gad. I've got more to say about them in a different segment on another show. You're going to see these two great defensive players play for South Gibson when they open up on August 22nd against Franklin Road Academy, or Franklin Academy. Cade also played basketball, took so many charges, but he and Yaya is committed to UCLA. Those are just some of those, and we thank Michael Odom for some of them. Now let's get you some more names. A blast from the past. What about JCM? They ever had any pro players? You better believe they've had some pro players. Check this list out. Now, it wasn't JCM, but it was Jackson High. Eddie Crawford played with the New York Giants back in the 50s after outstanding three-sport letter career down at Ole Miss and at Jackson High. Then getting into real Jackson Central Mary players and ones that didn't play at, well, I need to mention one more. A guy that started at East High School, only played basketball. His sister was married to Red Matthews, Pearlie Jones, she's Pearlie Matthews. His nephew is Mal Matthews, who teaches in this system, but a little short guy. And I'm being facetious when I say it. Edward Lee Too Tall Jones, who transferred to Mary High for his senior year, played football there, and then went to Tennessee State, became an All-American and a #1 draft choice of the Dallas Cowboys. He played at Mary High School, which Jackson High of Eddie Crawford and Mary High School of Too Tall Jones went together to form JCM, and that brings us to Artis Hicks, University of Memphis, a great player there, and then went on to play a long time in the NFL, a great lineman, could play guard and tackle, could have snapped the football if Artis had wanted to. Then Al Wilson, Denver Broncos, University of Tennessee. Without him, UT doesn't win a national championship. A great linebacker, played for Denver his entire career. And then one other dimension, a guy that played at the University of Memphis. He was a quarterback in high school at JCM, played on that state tournament team or the state championship game team that lost to Oak Ridge over at Rothrock was Trell Hooper. His dad, the legendary coach John Hooper, and Trell played with the Miami Dolphins. So that gets you a few of the JCM players. Now, just so I don't leave my Northside brethren out, but Sylvester Hicks and Brian Salee both. Sylvester played several years with the Kansas City Chiefs as a defensive lineman. You know, presently Trey Smith is playing in the NFL from USJ. And there are some others, and we're not trying to leave anybody out. Ryan Miller is in the NFL as we speak also. But we need to mention some people we're going to talk about, and we're going to tease you a little bit from the not Hardeman County, but the Henderson County. Please forgive me. Lexington residents, Sardis residents, Scotts Hill residents, and everybody in Henderson County. Some people I want to talk about, one of them is Gerard Arnold. You know him as Larry Gerard Arnold, played at the University of Memphis. He also played in the NFL. Charlotte Hart Beard, Union fans, you remember Charlotte Hart. What a great athlete. James Howell Hart, many of you know him better as Jim Hart, and we'll talk about him. Robert Stanley Little, those of you at Union, also Henderson County people, and Humboldt know him much better as Stan Little, who also was in the minor league system in professional baseball for a while. And then a really fine coach, a great guy, many of us know him, Floyd Harvey Powers. All of these guys are very distinctive, and we're teasing you for a future show. We're going to talk about the 1966 Sardis Blue Devils basketball team and their coach Matt Chandler. We had some more names that we really wanted to mention, but we're going to hold those off because we're going to continue our blast from the past. Now, it's not very often, but on an archive show that's actually going to happen on July 5th, this young man right here, you see him in a Pittsburgh Pirate uniform. If you go on Facebook, you go to the Jackson High page, and you can find him on the Jackson High page of alumni and stuff. This is, we call him Coach David Warnbrode. There he is a great pitcher. David had an outstanding Little League career. He had an outstanding Babe Ruth career. He had an outstanding American Legion. Yes, American Legion baseball. We don't have a team in Jackson Day, but they're still playing. In Columbia, there's post 19 still plays American Legion baseball. That's David as he was in the Pittsburgh Pirates farm system. Unfortunately, military commitment interrupted what could have been a really fine career as he was moving up the ladder towards the major leagues. Got to work out with him. And as a treat for all you Jackson High graduates, if I can hold it steady enough, there is a picture of David in a Jackson High Golden Bear uniform. The great sight. There are people that have actually shed tears when they see a Golden Bear uniform, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, or whatever the sport was. David Warnbrode, great pitcher. His dad was one of the legendary referees around here, James Warnbrode, and you can go back and find that archived later. Now, something that I encourage you to go to YouTube if you can find it, but Greg Hammond did a great story on 100 years of Peabody football, just like we're going to talk and possibly have him on this show when we finish getting things set up. We'll have Greg, but we're going to have Robert Rooks with 100 years of Haywood football. He wrote a book, a very good book. But Greg actually did and was asked by Trenton Peabody to do this, and it was a video of it, and he's got several segments, and we want to tell you about it. But what is high school football? Well, the average Joe will tell you high school football is a sport. But for those who have experienced high school football as a supporter, a parent, a player, or a coach, high school football just simply isn't a sport. High school football is a multi-month experience. It used to be a 7-month experience. It's a year-round experience now. That's the reason the dead period, which ended July 7th, was put in there is to try to have people rest, although travel ball and baseball, softball, and basketball has really cut into any rest that the young people get. But high school football is a multi-month experience. It's seed planted during practice, germinating and rooting in the spring through conditioning and preparation for high school football sprouts in the heat of summer. Amen. The community waits, anticipation, wondering if what seems to be the perfect situation will actually produce. But even the best conditions are tested by the challenges presented in the fall, test after test, and the week after week. By the time the experience is over, only the strongest are left standing, celebrating the fruits of their labor and success. This multi-month experience isn't just competition. It's certainly more than a sport. In towns like Trenton, Tennessee, high school football is the perfect circle where families, where communities come together under the banner of pride and of the Golden Tide, and they have 100 years of football. Search that out on Facebook. You probably can't see this, but Greg sent me a list of these. I've watched some of them. They're excellent done, and especially those of you of Peabody pride, you want to watch it, but other cities, other fans, this is what football is really about. Don't forget, the submission and processing of transfers for the fall was voted on and passed Wednesday, June the 18th, and so I believe they'll allow you to submit things by the school, processed by the state office, beginning July 14th of this year. Now, let's talk a little bit. We're trying to present a little history. I've got a cap here that we want to show you. It's dirty and dingy, and you say, Coach, what in the world are you putting this on a broadcast of quality like Worthy Road Studios has? Well, this cap says TSSAA state championship on it. Now I've got a version I wore here in the TSSAA game. You can probably see it. It says the same thing, but it's dirty and dingy on the maroon one. Well, I went to Smithville, Mississippi to help with their softball team. Coached with a really great guy, Jeremy Duke, and a couple other people. This cap was worn, you remember, Tennessee softball games had to be won in South Haven, Mississippi when the spring fling was in Memphis. Coach Joe struck a blow for Tennessee. This was the hat I wore coaching for Smithville, Mississippi when we won at Smithville the state championship down there, right on Mississippi soil. It said TSSAA state championship. Same color, but and this is one of the state championship rings that went with, it's the one that went with this, and you earn those things. I got it because I was able to work with a great coaching staff and a bunch of wonderful kids. Those kids lost a lot of games early. That's the high school that was damaged by that tornado that tore their whole school apart. They went to classes in portables that FEMA managed to build walkways and strung those portables together, and they put a whole year of school in while their school was being rebuilt. The funeral home got blown away in the city. Most of the businesses, the Dollar General was the only one that didn't get any severe damage down there. It was really tragic. Tombstones got hit, and part of the cemetery, as far as they just had a good map. Those kids persevered. They worked. They didn't complain. They were wonderful young people and a credit to society. This, along with what I told you about Peabody and what Greg Hammond wrote, this is what sports are all about. Don't want you to miss these shows and more. We got a great staff. Christopher Reasons, Billy Boland II, Paul Schultz, our executive director. We got Diamond Dave McCulley, Coach Joe Holloway, Thomas Pugh, Ben Howard. We've got more. We've had Steve Beverly. Go back and look at the archives. Now we're going to bring you more stuff. This one was just a quick one, and I'm going to tell you very quickly about two players that one you'll remember fairly easy. Older people you'll remember only one of them. But Senator Bob Johnson left the UT football team as one of the most decorated athletes in school history. Doug Dickey's first recruit struggled making snaps his sophomore year after moving over from right tackle, but rebounded to garner All-American status in 1966. Here's another great comeback back after failure at initially making success out of it like you can. And he made the All-American status in 66, his captain in 67. The Balls and Johnson lived up to their preseason hype by earning his second All-SEC and All-American nods with unanimous votes. Johnson was awarded the Jacobs Trophy, given to the SEC's best blocker. The Birmingham Touchdown Club named him the SEC's most outstanding lineman. In addition, Johnson finished sixth in the Heisman voting as a lineman, a center. He was the #1 NFL draft pick by the expansion Cincinnati Bengals in 1968. Went on to play 154 games with them until 1979. Johnson was elected to the College Hall of Fame in 1989. If at first you don't succeed, try again. He didn't give up. He didn't quit. He didn't let things get him down. Now, for you Cardinal fans, we're going to close with this story. Stanley Frank Musial. Born Stanislaw Franziak Musial. That's a mouthful, so they called him Stan Musial. Stan the man. Born November 21st, 1920, and January 2013 is when he passed away. Known as Stan the Man, American baseball outfielder and first baseman. Originally was a pitcher, but hurt his arm and his career switched to hitting, and he was a great one. He was regarded as one of the most legendary and reliable hitters in the history of baseball. Musial played 22 seasons in the major leagues, spent his entire career with the St. Louis Cardinals. He was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1969, his first year of eligibility. Throughout his career, he hit .331, set a National League record at that time for hits with 3,630. 1,815 be a better way of saying it. At home, guess what? He had 1,815 hits on the road. Very balanced. 475 home runs, and at that time ranked second in NL history behind Mel Ott. We know that the great Henry Aaron went on. Won 7 batting titles and earned the National League's MVP 3 times, helped the Cardinals win 3 world championships. By the time he retired, at the retirement time, he held or shared 17 Major League records, 29 National League records. He also shared the Major League record for the most All-Star games played in, 24 with Henry Aaron and Willie Mays. Stan the Man Musial, a man that one door was closed when his arm got hurt and he couldn't pitch anymore. Another door opened, and he went on to great things. Great things happen at Worthy Road Studios, whatever sports. We also do church services, weddings, funerals, graduations, graduation dances, you name it, and Worthy Roads is the place to be. We'll be back with more of the Lightning Strike sports shows in the future weeks to come. Some weeks 2 shows, some weeks 1, but the best in broadcasting from Worthy Road Studios. Thanks for your time this time. Till next time, good day all.
The award-winning BallGame Blitz Sports Network from Worthy Road Studios. Over 1 million views in 2024. We're where you need to advertise. Subscribe to our Worthy Road Studios YouTube channel and join the over 5,500 subscribers watching local sports, Union University, Bethel College, South Gibson County, USJ, and TCA. Multi-camera broadcasts, slow motion instant replay, on-screen scoreboard and graphics, and professional announcers. Thanks to our sponsors who make it all possible. BallGame Blitz Sports Network from Worthy Road Studios, the premier sports broadcast network in West Tennessee.